Hey guys, how are you doing? We're back in the garage. I'm really pumped and excited to get this truck back together. Just got back from the UCC earlier this week, and seeing all that high horsepower shit really wants me to get this thing together and get it to the track and see what it can do. And maybe we'll get to the dyno this summer. I want to see what we can do and see how long we can push these 6.7 rods before we shrink them, or worse, blow them out of the block. But anyhow, we're back working on the top end. Tonight we're going to do valve springs and push rods. They're both pretty simple, especially if you have the right tool for the push, or for the valve springs, I mean. If you have this Tork Technologies tool, which I'll show you here in a bit, it's easy. It's just cake. So anyhow, as you can see, pretty much got everything out. We have our head studs, which in my last video I did, but the rockers are out, the rocker box, the valve spring bridges. So we just have our push rods and our valve springs. I've already put the truck at top dead center. So number one cylinder is up. I have my crude little tool here, a little chainsaw file that I marked when I took them out of the gray truck. But put this in the center here, if I can get there. Oh, all right, we're there. So as you can see, I have the bottom of that tape mark very at the end of that little chamfer. So that'll tell me when the cylinder is at the right height that we can do the valve springs, because if you don't, you could drop the valve in the cylinder, which would be no bueno. So anyhow, we'll do that. Also, when you're doing this, they say that it adds up to 7 what cylinders you can do at the same time. So that's 6 and 1, 2 and 5, 3 and 4. It's really simple. Like I said, got our little tool, so now we'll be able to tell exactly which, exactly where it's at and make sure everything's copacetic. So our tool here is the Tork Technologies tool. I think they're like 75 bucks, but this thing is fantastic. It's a nice aluminum piece, tells you intake side, exhaust side, and then we got our stud here. The stud will just bolt down where the injector bolts down. This will slide on top with a washer and a nut. I'm going to put some of this ARP Ultra Torque that I got left over from doing the head studs on the threads, just so we don't mess them up, make things a little easier. But another nice thing about this is it's aluminum. So when you're taking your keepers off, here it is, you can get a little magnet, pull them off, and make sure you don't lose them, because that would be bad, especially since I got my grid heater exposed and all these holes. Another thing I'm going to try and remember to do is just kind of put a rag over stuff, so that way if we do lose any of the keepers, they don't go in the motor or in the intake or anything like that. But like I said, it's pretty easy. It really doesn't take all that long. I mean, if you're doing it by yourself, oh, that's another thing. When you're putting it at top dead center, there's a mark on the top of the harmonic balancer that says that. What I do is, since I always do this stuff by myself, I put it at top dead center, which I have to get up off the ground a few times. But then I put a little marker mark on the bottom of the harmonic balancer, so when I'm under the truck, I can still tell where it is and make things a lot easier going forward. So anyhow, we're going to get to it. We're going to start with number 1, then we'll move to number 6, so on and so forth. And let's have at it. So that's number 1 cylinder done. We're going to move on to number 6, but a couple things that I forgot that I did while I was doing it. Sometimes, like this motor hasn't ran in a couple weeks, so there's no oil on the keepers for the valve springs. So what I did was I just poked down, got some oil out of the head, put on there, and that'll help them kind of adhere to the valve while you're trying to set all the others. And you just want to center everything up. When you put your tool back on, just center your tool over top, and your springs you want to center to your valve. And another thing I like to do is just take a mallet, give them a little tap, rattle them a little bit, make sure everything looks right, and just, I guess it's reassurance, kind of seating them. Whether you need to do it or not, I don't know, but hey, it makes me feel better and sleep better at night. So, and by the way, we're using, as you can see, I had put my factory stuff back on there, so that way if I wanted to get rid of them or use them over. But these are 103 Hamilton cams, push rods. These also have the spring retainers, because the stock ones, from what I can understand, crack and just they're seeing stress. So you can also get titanium retainers, which weigh a lot less, but I don't know that we need that at that point, and I already have these, so we're kind of stuck with them. So we're going to move on to 6 and go from there. Alright, so our valve springs are installed and our retainers, everything looks good. Now we're going to move on to push rods. Push rods are simple, pull them out, the cam's in, so pull them out, the tappet will stay in the hole, you put the new one in. The ones I have are the Hamiltons, the Extremes. I believe the exhaust side is smaller than the intake, I'll double check. But, so you'll have to just make sure you get that right. Then some they're the same size, so it's not a big deal. You just drop them in and go. So basically you pull them out and you'll feel the tappet, right? You can kind of hear it. I don't know if you guys can. So when you put it back in, you want to make sure it's in there. If it's off to the side or something, it just won't be right. But the oil will hold it. The other thing is, there's these plugs up here. You take these out so you can get these rear 2 cylinders, 5 and 6. You can get the push rods out of there. So we'll move on to that. And if you haven't realized, the exhaust side is towards the back because the rocker arm will push on the valve bridge for here. So this is the exhaust, this is the intake. Alright, so when trying to take that cap out, the rear one, I couldn't get it, it was kind of snug. I ended up popping it into the cowl by accident, which I got pissed off and knocked the camera over, all that bullshit. So anyhow, what I ended up doing was, I pried this clip out here, lifted the cowl up, stuck my arm in there, and just kind of got a hold of it. So, now here's our 2 caps. Now, we can pull our push rods out. There we go. Alright, so I just looked on Hamilton Cam's website, the extreme duty push rods. I was wrong. The thicker one, the 7/16 rod, will go in the exhaust side, and the thinner one will go in the intake. So last night when I put the valve springs and push rods in and was doing the video, I forgot to kind of take an outro, I guess, or little video wrap up. But anyhow, so I'm doing it today, next day. Anyhow, we got all our valve springs and push rods in. We still have to put our 200% over injectors in, which will probably be the next video. And then also put our rockers back in, set valve lash, so on and so forth. Then we should be done with the top end of the motor. Like I said, all our push rods and valve springs are in. Also, I put our rubber plugs back in. Little tip with the rubber plugs: get a little penetrating oil, WD-40 something, spray a little bit of that, wipe it around with your finger on them. They'll pop right in. Makes it a lot easier than doing anything dry. It's like exhaust bracket, the little snubbers, the rubber snubbers. You spray them with WD-40 or something, they'll pop right off. Otherwise, they just fight you. So, anyhow, look out for the next video. It should be the injector install, and after that, the valves and second gen turbo or second gen kit, 48 swap. We got a bunch more shit to do to this thing before we take it to the track, but I'm hoping to get it done here shortly. So, I'll see you guys on the next one.